to Tab Media's special report on American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story. I'm your host, Jennifer Rash, and joining me is Andy Erwin, one of the directors of the film. Andy, thanks for joining us.
It's always good to talk to you, Jennifer. It's been too long.
It has been a long time. We have loved watching your journey here. We're here in Birmingham. You and your brother John are from Birmingham, and it's been fun to watch you all along this way. And now you're all famous, and we can barely get to you.
I don't know about that last part, but we're just kids from Alabama that fell in love with storytelling, and we grew up, my dad, being in media and talk radio, and just fell in love with it at a young age. And nobody thought, they kind of discounted Birmingham as a place where filmmakers could come from. And we just kind of always came in with a chip on our shoulder and said, we're proud to kind of show what Alabama can do. And so we've been at it for 20 plus years now, and we're still feeding our families or we're working.
That's so great. That's so great. Now you still have connections to Birmingham, correct? As far as you didn't totally move away, right?
Yeah, we're back in town a good bit. We've got a lot of family there, and so in fact we were there a couple weeks ago. But we're just up the road in Nashville now, and kind of had to move up here a couple years ago. But we stayed in Birmingham really until 2019, and then eventually we just had to move for airports that had direct flights, but my heart's still in Birmingham.
Wow. Well, it's been fun. Well, you've always been so kind to us here at the Alabama Baptist and now the Baptist Paper and Tab Media Group. And we've enjoyed being able to tell your story along the way. Tell us, catch us up for a second with your movie lineup, and then we'll land with the new one.
Yeah. With our movies, we started with a little, we started with music videos back in the day, and then we ended up doing a small little independent feature that we did there in Birmingham, shot a lot of it at Samford University and the Alabama Theater. It was called October Baby. And that kind of launched things off. And then we did a comedy called Mom's Night Out. And we did Woodlawn. And then our breakout hit was I Can Only Imagine. And that came out in 2018. And that was the one that really kind of put us on the map. And then we did I Still Believe, which was another music movie. And that led us to the current one, American Underdog. And so it's been a fun journey, kind of windy road to get here, but it's been really, really rewarding.
And so with your movies, they always have some kind of faith theme or basis or thread.
Right.
That's accurate, right?
Yeah. I mean, John and I, we really embraced, we kind of came about when this whole faith film resurgence came through, and we were working on the set of the Kendrick Brothers film that, of course, the Kendrick Brothers have done Fireproof and Courageous and War Room and Overcomer and so many others. And John was working on the set of Courageous as a second unit director and doing all the stunt scenes. And one day Alex Kendrick pulled him aside and said, "John, what's your purpose?" And he said, "I'm here to, for work. I'm here for a paycheck." And he said, "It's time for you and your brother to kind of get off the sidelines and find your stories to tell." Wow. And that's when John came home and had the script for October Baby. And we decided to kind of jump into the deep end, not know what we were getting ourselves into.
I love it. Any regrets?
No. I mean, I think God has a way of not showing you the end destination, because I think on one hand, I guess it'd be really exhilarating to see where it was going to go. But if you saw all the challenges along the way, I would have probably run the other direction, because it's not an easy task. But I think God gave us just enough success to keep us from quitting, and just enough struggle to keep us from ourselves and depending on Him. And so yeah, no regrets. I'm a storyteller through and through. If it weren't for this job, I don't know what I'd do for a living.
Oh, fun. Well, the first two were more scripted, where you had the creative side, told the story, created a story. And then these last two have been someone else's story that you developed. Right. What's the difference in putting those together? And do you have a preference over one over the other?
Early on, as filmmakers, you just kind of try different things on to just try to, it's kind of like playing the piano. Like when you learn how to play the piano, you imitate and do a lot of things up front while you're learning the discipline. And then there comes that point where you kind of find your song and you're like, I know how to play this. And for us, that was Woodlawn. And Woodlawn was our first true story. It was a story that is very much a Birmingham story about the tail end of integration in Birmingham and the Jesus movement hitting this one school that was one of the last to integrate, and out of that leading to the first Black superstar in the Birmingham school system for football, and then led to this big spiritual awakening that led to the biggest high school football game in the history of the Southeast, and about 60,000 people that attended that, both inside and outside the stadium. And so we told that story because it was one that we heard growing up. It was one that my dad would act out as a bedtime story. And so when we did it, we kind of found our voice, that we love underdog stories, we love true stories, we love redemption stories. And something about a true story gives you a lot more license as a Christian to be more overt with the story and the message, because it's somebody's real life experience. And I think a lot of times a secular audience accepts that more widely than something you've made up. And so we kind of leaned into that. So this was actually, we've done 4 true stories now. So it's, I can imagine, I still believe in the new American Underdog. All of those are true stories. And we're in the process of shooting 2 more true stories, and I'm developing 2 more on top of that. So it's kind of become our niche, and we've loved every minute of it.
And so are they seeking you out? Are you seeking them out? How are they landing in your lap?
I don't think we're smart enough to kind of go out and find them. I think it's just dumb luck and God's grace, I guess. But the stories that kind of find us, that kind of capture our attention. Obviously, at this point, we get pitched a lot of stories all the time, and so we can't even kind of wade through all the different stories that kind of come our way. But then there'll be those ones that's like, okay, this is one we have to tell. Mm-hmm. So like right now, my brother is directing a movie in Mobile. We still like to direct a lot of movies in Alabama whenever possible, but he's directing one in Mobile called The Jesus Revolution. That is a kind of a prequel to Woodlawn. It's the story of the beginning of the Jesus movement that happened out on the West Coast with Chuck Smith and Calvary Chapel. And then ultimately this young kid, Greg Laurie, kind of comes to Christ through it all. And it's an amazing story. So Kelsey Grammer is starring in it. Jonathan Rumi, that plays Jesus in The Chosen, is in it. Wow. It's a really great cast. So they're in the middle of the last weeks of prep on that. They start filming, I think, next week. And John's going to crush it. So we love those true stories.
So you do some separate and some together.
Yeah,
you help each other out.
We've always been the Erwin brothers, and we always develop things together. Mm-hmm. We've traditionally worked a lot on the same thing, but again, due to the volume of material, we've had to divide and conquer a lot in order to kind of keep things fresh and keep from burnout. And so, luckily, God, created 2 Erwin brothers so we could kind of each take a swing at the bat. John's extremely talented, tells a story one way and I tell it another, but kind of the DNA of how the stories end up on the screen, it's the same. And then there's other filmmakers that have come around us, like John Gunn, that directed Case for Christ. He directs for us a good bit now, and has done several films that are coming out with us that are really, really great pieces of art. So excited.
Wow. Well, how, you mentioned Kelsey Grammer and Dennis Quaid's in American Underdog. How do you get the higher profile names to come alongside you?
It was a challenge at first because, at first there was kind of a stigma or a stereotype to being Christian filmmakers. It was kind of frowned upon in the industry when we first got started. Right. But Hollywood, like anything else, is a business. It's not overall an agenda. It's more of a what makes us money, and the bottom line when it comes to the studios. Obviously, there's agendas within Hollywood, but the studio system is really about, it's a business, and they just, faith films had not really proven themselves, but because of the success of the Kendricks and kind of breaking down that door, and then ultimately leading to us being able to have our breakout with I Can Only Imagine, and then Devon Franklin and others, it kind of really broke down that barrier to where now it's just seen as a legitimate kind of genre. And so now more and more actors aren't afraid of that. And so like in this new film, American Underdog, that we did, Kurt Warner's story, obviously we've worked with Quaid before and he wanted to work with us again. So that was kind of an easy thing for us to kind of go back to that because we like working with each other. But then Zachary Levi from Shazam had been a longtime friend. We met at a Bible study that we used to meet at his house out in Los Angeles. And then he kind of has since become an A-list actor. He looks a lot like Kurt and he just signed on. And then Anna Paquin's an Oscar winner and she's not a person of faith. She first conversation we had with her, and she said, "I'm not a person of faith. It's really nothing that I've done kind of like this. And I've never kind of experienced anything like this. Is that a problem for me playing a Christian?" And I said, absolutely not. As long as we can agree on you honoring the real life story and you do your homework to understand what Brenda Warner's faith meant to her. And so it was a really cool opportunity for somebody that wasn't familiar with faith to really do her homework. And she absolutely crushed it. And I was so proud of her performance and taking the material seriously. So more and more God's opening doors like that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, she did do a great job. I have been able to watch the movie, and
That's
you
great.
guys it's been, not only watching your journey just from Birmingham boys here and us being excited, but even your work is just
Thank you.
each one is just stronger and stronger, and the quality and everything. The storytelling's always been amazing, but you can tell the growth in all the areas.
Thank you.
So
Well, it's something we've said from the beginning, because we didn't know what we did. We didn't know what we didn't know when we first got started, but we kind of adopted a philosophy that quality is something you always chase. It's not something you ever catch.
Ooh,
And and so we just aspire to, with each one, get a little bit better. And I think God has allowed us to have the longevity now to kind of really understand the discipline of kind of what we're doing, and we continue to try to chase that quality bar. And it's been really cool to see God open those opportunities for us to stretch with each project, and then with the talent coming around in front of the camera, it's just been really cool to see it compete on a legitimate level, and I've been really excited about that.
Yeah. And you mentioned the breakout moment. I can imagine that even just as you're, getting more and more known and your films are more and more appreciated, that's going to help as well all the way around.
Yeah, I can only imagine opened a lot of doors. When we did that little film, it was not expected to do that much, but Bart Miller that wrote I Can Only Imagine, his story just has a lot of power to it. There's a lot of love for that song. And then I think the cast did an incredible job. And I think it's one of Dennis Quaid's best performances. And it just hit a nerve. And we're sitting watching the box office results come in, and to get to do $17 million opening weekend, everybody was floored. And it was really interesting. We saw the data spikes on where's this movie playing incredible, and we saw that Burbank was just off those charts, and we're like, nobody sees a faith film in Burbank. And so we sent a spy in to go see who was in the audience, and it was packed with studio chiefs and like studio lackeys with their notepads out and writing notes of like, why in the world is this working?
Wow,
So
that's
it was really neat to see God open those doors.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Well, tell us what it was like to work with Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner is a champ in every sense of the word. I was reading this morning, on Twitter, like Blake Shelton, the country singer, was tweeting that he had discovered the movie on Apple TV this week and had watched it twice, and he was in love with the movie. And it's really cool to see people discover there's just something universally loved about Kurt's story. He is the ultimate underdog, but the cool thing to find was it wasn't just him being the underdog, it was his whole family. And to hear Brenda's story, and then their son Zach, who was blind, and just kind of being able to see God kind of do something special with their entire story. So that was cool. And then Kurt's intense. I mean, I think the thing that was the hardest was to get him not to be his own stunt double, because he kept saying, I can still play, put me in, coach. And like, Kurt, the insurance policies are not going to pay for that. Sorry, bud. But
I can imagine that was going to be so much fun for him.
It was great. He kept saying, I could do that play. I could do that play. He's very competitive. And then Zachary Levi, that plays him in the movie, is equally competitive and kept reminding Kurt that he was an inch taller than him. So they definitely had the ego matches going. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. So was he heavily involved in all the parts and pieces?
Yeah, he was on Kurt and Brenda were on set probably for a third of the filming, and then they're involved in all the production, pre-production. They were producers on the film. And, and I when we got into it, I made a commitment to him. I said, Kurt, I'm going to make 2 commitments to you. Number one, we're going to listen to all your input to make sure that we get get it right. Make sure that it reflects your life story. But the second thing is, we're not going to let you make a bad movie. So anytime with that, the principal number 1 interferes with principal number 2, we're going to let you know. So we had this nice kind of friendly, competitive tension where I get notes at 3 a.m. of ideas. And then he'd say, okay, I'll be on at 6 a.m. to discuss these. And I'm like, when do you sleep, man? But it's that same Super Bowl competitor that existed in him that got him to where he went in that career still exists now. And he has that same drive. And I think it's a big part of what made such a good movie.
So did Kurt and Brenda want their story told? Did they have a need for that to come out? Or was it something that you had to convince them? How did that play out?
Well, we had to convince them, but their story, they had been trying to develop it with another studio for probably about 5 years. Okay. And that deal was lapsing. And a friend mentioned us and said, you ought to talk to the Erwins. And so we went and sat down with, sat down with with them and kind of pitched the story and had a really great experience. And then that, I guess, we won them over. And as soon as we got out the door, we got a call from their agent saying they really want you guys to do it. And so the cool thing for us is, years ago I started as a sports cameraman, and so I was on the sideline of the Super Bowl in 2001 when Kurt Warner played in his second Super Bowl against Tom Brady in his first. Really? And I just remember playing out, and I never would have thought 20 years later that we'd be the ones telling the story.
That is a neat connection. You really never know, at that moment. But
never know.
And I'm sure everybody else has seen this interesting note, but it hit me as well thinking about this, how the with Kurt winning the Super Bowl with the Rams in 2000. And that the story has come out, and it was delayed a year because of the pandemic, and it came out Christmas of 2021. And then the Rams, now in LA, win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what,
it's just a kind of a neat
for that kind of free advertising. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible. It was just the timing. It was pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, I thought like I said, I'm sure everybody saw that connection, but I was that was fun for me to make that connection, and then to know that the current team has a standout Christian with Cooper. And I was thinking, Andy and John may be already talking to
sequels. Yeah, I like it. So, it was cool watching. It was funny. I got a text from Anna Paquin when the game was going on, and she's from New Zealand, and she said, I'm watching my very first Super Bowl because it's the Rams, and I'm cheering, and I still have no idea what the rules to this game are.
That's fantastic. She couldn't help it. She had to cheer for them.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Well, what tell us the difference about doing a sports movie and any other kind of story.
For us, there's different things that for us doing faith stories that it's just a real natural fit. Mm-hmm. And exists very easily in music. Mm-hmm. It exists very easily in military, and it exists very easily in sports. Those are places where it feels normal. Right. And so doing a sports movie, this is our second sports movie, and it was really kind of cool to kind of develop, the storyline. And I think, what we really try hard to do is to make it, when you go into the game, that it doesn't matter if you're a football fan or not, that you care about these people and it has stakes. So it's really connected to everyday life that drives what happens on the field. And we worked really hard at that. So when we get to the end game, everybody's cheering whether they understand football or not, because they need to see Kurt and Brenda win. And, it was just, I don't think there's anything better than a sports movie. My favorite movies are sports movies. And so working on that, working with one of our producers, Mark Chardy, is a legendary sports producer, has done every movie from the Miracle to The Rookie. And, it was cool to kind of swap stories and kind of see it fresh, but it was a lot of fun to do.
Well, I loved how you used real footage
Yeah.
and intermingled that, and your cuts were so good that sometimes I'd be like,
Oh,
wait, is that really Kurt, or is that the is that
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was something exciting because we had to shoot this during COVID, and we were doing our best to try to kind of work with the schedule and the protocols and all those things that we were having to deal with. We didn't have nearly as many days to film it as we wanted. So originally we had about 2 weeks to film the big final game, and we had to chop that down to 3 days.
Wow.
And so we were like, well, what do we do to make this work? And we just said, what if we really incorporated choreographing the plays in such a way where it matches directly to what happened in real life, so that when we get to those moments, we can intercut it between this archival footage. And what it happened is, I think it's better that way, because it just made it feel like it's not something historical you're watching. It's almost like you're watching it live now. And it kind of gives it that immediacy and that visceral feel that I think plays well into how the audience responds.
However, when Herb Street came on, that was really funny. That I was like, how old is he?
Yeah, he looked like he was 12. It was funny because I emailed or I texted Kirk, and because I'm connected to a lot of those guys from my old ESPN days, and I connected with Kirk, and I just said, we're doing this movie, and I just landed on some priceless footage of you. Is it okay if we put you in as a cameo? And he's like, man, I'd love it. Go for it. And so we got his full blessing to show 12-year-old Kurt Flickler, or Kurt Herbstreit.
I know it. That was the best. I love that. That was so good. And it did make it made it real. It made you go back to that moment. And so many of us who have followed those stories, it just kind of placed you there. So good.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that.
Okay. So I want to know how the kids, Kurt and Brenda's kids, how did they react? What did they think?
It was really cool. First of all, Zach, their son, who's 32 now, is one of the most pure-hearted individuals on the planet. Wow. Just has a big smile and a big heart. And he was really the key to the movie and key to us wanting to do the movie. And so one of the coolest moments was, and I don't think he totally understood the movie concept and how it all worked, but he just knew he was going to be part of a movie. He was excited. So we cast this kid, Hayden Zoller, from Georgia, who is actually blind. We wanted to cast a blind actor to play Zach, and Hayden just absolutely crushed it. First time actor, but just adorable kid that just every time the camera's on him, he just draws you in. And the coolest moment was we went to a charity function for Kurt and Brenda, and they had this this charity called Treasure House that they founded. That's a big halfway home for high functioning disabled children that are become adults, and for them to be able to kind of have some independence in a halfway kind of assisted living type environment, to be able to get a job and then have an apartment. And it's a pretty amazing charity. But they were doing a fundraiser for it. So the entire cast for Underdog, we all went out to the charity in Phoenix, including Hayden. And seeing Hayden and Zach meet for the first time on the red carpet was amazing. And so the way that they see is with their hands, they feel each other's features. And when Zach was feeling the features of Hayden and it connected with him, he's like, oh, this is a version of me.
Wow.
And he just lit up, and the two of them were laughing and just cutting up. And that was the most magic moment I've seen. And so And then for the rest of the Warner kids, I mean, they've got 7 of them. They're all from high school on now. It was really cool for them to have a new appreciation for what their dad went through, because a lot of times they were really young or not even born, and they didn't realize the struggle to get to where they are, and it was pretty cool for them to have that appreciation.
Oh, well, powerful story, great storytelling. Excited for you guys and glad to see it's still moving along. You said the numbers are really, really showing up
Yeah,
well.
it did really well in the theaters and really connected with its audience. It got an A+ cinema score, which is really rare. It's really, the audience really enjoyed it. And then it had its run in theaters, and after the Super Bowl win by the Rams, we came out on digital home video, and so it's currently tracking really high on Apple TV and all the other places where you buy movies, or you can get it at Walmart, anywhere else. So it's been really exciting, and we're really thrilled to see the audience engage with this story.
All right. So it's American Underdog, and you can find more information at americanunderdog.movie. Andy, thank you.
Jennifer, it's a pleasure. Enjoyed it.